1 minute.
Shirley, I don't recognize you. Jacob Hart.
I looked at you and you looked familiar. But it was like, he was a child. Where's your mom now?
She's in Rome, Georgia, with the nonprofit up there, helping, helping homeless. In West Portsmouth. Yeah, she's from Rayfeld.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Yep. Tell her to call me or text me. So, yeah, because I went right up. Did you notice I went up to you and I'm like, I This is my last one. And my last meeting is next week. I'm going off. We're going to take a cruise out of Singapore in 3 weeks. Well, we're going to spend some time in Singapore. I think it's just 2 weeks, but. Oh,
Do imagine 3 weeks without email?
Huh?
Can you imagine 3 weeks without email?
Well, you know, when I go down to Mexico, I can still make phone calls, I can get texts, I can get my emails, but the school district blocks anything from out of the country. So I can get that. I just got back. We got this all inclusive resort that we go to now.
All right.
Well, and we've got, we went to another thing where we can, do, trips for 20% less. They average, oh, I got 2% less than what it's being. And we can offer it to friends.
Don't know. Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock. It's November the 8th, 2022, and I'm reconvening our school workshop for one final segment that we have. The other things will be postponed as Bridget Ziegler has now left us and Karen Rose has not been here all day. So the rest of those items will be at a further meeting, but we're going to spend the next hour talking about the SSIS Charter School and a presentation that they're giving to us. So I would like to say welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
I don't mean to be rude. If I can't see you all directly, I'll move my head around.
So I think we'll turn it over to Millie if you want to introduce today.
We can't hear you.
I just wanted to welcome the SSIS team, and they are here today to talk about their school and highlight their most recent school grade, along with an improvement plan that they have already put in place and are working towards. I will let them speak to that plan. But with us today, you will notice that we have Mrs. Faith Evans. They've done a little. Mrs. Jenkins. They've done a little bit of reorganization, and she has been now named the principal. So welcome to Faith, and she has previewed her presentation with us a little bit, and I will let her introduce her team and move forward. And certainly, if you have any questions for Dr. Cantalupo or I, we're happy to come up and assist. But I will turn it over to Faith.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So I am so glad to be here. Thank you very much for allowing us the time to talk about our school. So yes, we are Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. We're a school for multiple intelligences. We've partnered with this district since 1999. So I'll give our team an opportunity to introduce ourselves, and then we'll get started with our presentation.
I'm Anthony DiBenedetto, Director of Finance.
Hi, I'm Barry Preston. I'm the president of the board, and again, very pleased to be here and appreciate the time you're taking to hear us out.
Hello, I'm Jacob Hart, Vice Chair. I have a financial planning company here, but I was I grew up in Sarasota and went to Sarasota County School, so I'm happy to be here, happy to serve on the board.
Dumika Atkins, Esau Liaison.
And I'm David Zuspan. I'm a board member.
Thank you. So again, we are Suncoast School for Innovative Studies, Faith Jenkins principal. Very, very excited to be here, but also very nervous. It's my first time presenting here to this school board, so I appreciate the opportunity. We are, again, Suncoast School for Innovative Studies, proud to partner with this district. We know that we have faced many challenges over the years, not unlike schools across the nation. We know that across the years, we have come to this district to explain how we plan to move our school, how we plan to show different growth. So today we're going to show you and talk to you about the plan that we have for 2022-2023. We've sent you some information about our school improvement plan, and I want to work through some of those goals and plans with you. What we have found over the past year, especially after we reviewed some of our data, is that throughout the pandemic, we definitely had to, or after the pandemic, we needed to prioritize certain procedures, and we definitely needed to take a look at some areas. So those are the things that I want to outline with you all today. So as we know, a part of our agreement with this district is that our students need to meet certain academic markers. We needed to make sure that our students are showing certain growth. So what we'll talk about is, of course, how we're going to get our students there, but we also we know that our students, our teachers, and our administration need to be supportive of our teachers, and we need to make sure that our students are able to show that growth. One of our first goals is transformational leadership. In order for our students to show growth, our teachers need to be supportive, and we have to make sure that our leadership is in a good place in order to do that. When our scores took a dip, not unlike many schools across the district and across the nation during the pandemic, we made some changes, and we showed some growth last school year, not as much as we had hoped. When we came back last school year, we knew that we couldn't go about business as usual this year. We were rated from the state. We got the letter grade of a D, and we were considered a CS&I school, comprehensive school and intervention, so of intensive support. So we knew that we needed to reevaluate it. We needed some new tools. We went straight to the source to find out what we needed to do. We spent 2 days in Tallahassee with the Bureau of School Improvement ourselves. What we did find was that charter schools need to find the resources themselves. We need to ask for that help. It doesn't come automatic. So that's what we did. We spent those 2 days with the Bureau of School Improvement so that we could make sure that we found out, even though we know that we've been with this district for a while through our challenges, we've never been a CS&I school before. So we had to find out, what does that mean? How do we manage this? How do we come out of this status? What does our data look like? How do we write a school improvement plan with this status? How do we make these changes? Going to the state afforded us the opportunity to actually talk to the people who are helping to write those plans. We know that BSI worked with Emma E. Booker and Wilkinson, so it was extremely important for us to find out how did that school, we know that Booker was able to come out of that status after about 3 years. We would love to have some similar results. So it was important for us to work with the Bureau and also with our district sponsors to figure out, okay, what do we need to do? How do we work through this? And what are some of the steps that we can take? So while we were there, we worked with them to come up with a time where they could actually come to our campus. Over the last, I would say, 2 months, we have been sending our schedules. We've sent lesson plans. They have been coordinating with us so that they could actually come on a visit. They plan to come to our campus. We've actually invited some members of the district within the executive team to come out to do more frequent walkthroughs. We know that it's important that we support our teachers. We know that it's important that they receive more frequent feedback, that they are evaluated more fairly, that they are evaluated more specifically, and that we have more targeted feedback so that when it's time that our students are assessed and when it's time for our teachers to have those evaluations, they know what they're moving toward. And we have found, as you know, that Emma E. Booker and Wilkinson, through working with BSI, that they have found some success with doing that. They are slated actually to come out on Thursday, along with about 6 or 7 members of the district team. But as you know, the state of emergency has kind of shifted that back. So this afternoon, they're expected to tell us when they're going to be rescheduling that visit. But it's actually been very favorable. They've been extremely helpful, along with several members of that executive staff here with the district, with helping us with reworking our schedule, making sure we have time in that schedule for administration to be able to go in and help with those groups and work through what it looks like for making adjustments for enhancing student achievement. One of the other things that we found out while we were in Tallahassee is that we're going to be awarded the UNISIG grant, so the Unified School Improvement Funds. We will actually be awarded that for the next 2 school years automatically. So we've received $65,000 this year. We will also receive those funds automatically for the 23-24 school year. Those funds this year, we partnered with Catapult Learning. They will be actually a very big part of each of our school improvement goals. This year, for Catapult Learning, they will be coming in and helping with instructional coaching in math, reading, and science. So they will be bringing in instructional coaches that will be helping to spend time with teachers to help actually us to learn how to be instructional coaches as well. But they will be helping with some reciprocal teaching in that area so that, again, we can help with specifically giving some feedback to our teachers as they are working with the students. One of the other things that's very important about our CS&I status while we were spending time in Tallahassee is that while we are a CS&I school, a part of that comes from our ESSA subgroups. While we are working through our school improvement plan, while we were combing through our data, we knew that it was very important to pay attention to how we became a CS&I school. It wasn't just testing, it wasn't just scores, we had to comb down to some very, very important basic levels. And we had to really pay attention to some very, very fine details. One of those details was our ESSA subgroups. We know that TS&I schools are actually very common, especially in this district. Those schools, that means that there are a couple of subgroups where the 41% threshold is not met. There are quite a few schools in this district where there are a few subgroups that are below that threshold. Once you get into 3 and 4 and 5 subgroups that are not at that 41% threshold, you are absolutely now at a CS&I status, and that is where we have landed. So this year, we had to pay very specific attention to our subgroups. Once again, we are using the UNISIG funds that we have been awarded to pay very close attention to those subgroups. So right now, we have identified 30 students who fall within multiple subgroups that are very, very difficult to move as far as just having time in regular instructional groups. We need to spend more time with those students outside of their regular instructional time, so they need to have more intensive support, so more intervention time outside of their regular instructional time in the classroom. So we've identified those students, and they will have frequent, intensive, and targeted small group instruction. Catapult Learning will come in and help with that. They'll receive 90 minutes of math per week and 90 minutes of reading. So those pre-identified students are the students that fall within those subgroups that have been identified as those subgroups that have created that lower threshold for us. We know that we can move our students. Our students typically do show growth. The issue for our school and the issue for many of our students is proficiency. We quite often get students enrolled on our campus who come in maybe in 4th grade, but they are performing on a kindergarten level or a 1st grade level. We're able to raise those students up to maybe, if they're in 4th grade, up to maybe a 2nd or a 3rd grade level. Giving them more intensive, targeted small group instruction will most likely get them to the point where they're able to show that proficiency, but we have to give them more targeted small group instruction. We've also opted in to the optional iReady diagnostics this year. So this was optional this year, but we decided that we needed to have more data. So working with Catapult and making sure that we had additional data helps us to be able to have more frequent eyes on those students so that we can see what shifts are necessary and continue to close those gaps. When we will also be continuing to share that information with BSI so that as they have more frequent calls, visits, and emails back and forth with us, we can continue to shift and share that information with them. One big shift that we did make was extending our school day by 60 minutes. So we start 30 minutes earlier this year than we did last year, and we end our school day 30 minutes later. We were able to extend our, to make sure that we had more time in our regular instructional blocks, and then they also have the intensive intervention time built into their schedules. So getting to the instructional pieces, we know throughout the years we needed to really rework our vision. We needed to really pay attention to what the mission and vision was for our school. As we considered what it meant to be a school of multiple intelligence, we also needed to build mission-appropriate staff, students. We needed to see what did it mean to be on a campus of multiple intelligence, but also what does it mean to work at a school of multiple intelligence in an A-rated district. When we talked about building that kind of staff, we had to pay attention to their professional development goals, what kind of educational aspirations they had as well. We did notice that a lot of our teachers in the last couple of years were not either not certified, hadn't participated in the professional development plans, or hadn't participated in some of the offerings of professional development. So we were very conscious about making sure that we had more highly qualified teachers on our staff, and many of those teachers, again, have returned this year and they have participated in our professional development. One of the main things that we did this year was we had a professional development day where we took all of our teachers and staff to the Florida Charter School Conference so that they could participate in professional development along whatever track they sought to participate in. While they were there, they were able to get more information, again, for this goal, which was we needed to participate in more standards-aligned instruction. Many of our students that are struggling to perform to proficiency need to participate in more instruction that is going to help them to see what the test is going to look like when it's time. Our students who are struggling to understand the test just need more exposure to grade level content. After the pandemic, you have students who were coming back and are performing lower. And yes, we needed teachers to get more engaged. We needed them to get more excited. We needed to motivate the students. But what we did find, and I think every school across the county and across the nation found, that we were trying to get our students engaged, but we were differentiating down. We were trying to get them engaged and we were coming down to their level instead of keeping them challenged. And so we had to rework and rethink about what standards-aligned instruction meant. Working with BSI and making sure we have those targeted look-fors and making sure we tell them we are looking for standards-aligned instruction. We need to have the standards that need to be aligned with the activities that they're doing, and it also needs to be aligned with the assessments that we're giving them. What does Tier 1 look like? What does Tier 2 look like? And what does that small group look like? That's the new focus for these teachers. This year, we also implemented weekly planning meetings that we're having with our teachers, so that when they are working through their lesson plans, they also have FaceTime with us, so that we're able to communicate with them about some of the things that they are able to work on in their classrooms, so we can better align our expectations, the expectations for the assessments, and the expectations for the students. One of the most important things for us is to make sure that as we move forward, we're able to continue working with, again, our district sponsors to make sure that as we work through all of the things that we're doing, that we're able to align with what the expectations are. Our next goal, none of the things that I mentioned matter at all if we can't get our students on campus and we can't get our parents engaged. So we can stand on our head and we can sing songs and we can talk in circles, but one of the main things that was very difficult for our parents and for the community that we serve was keeping them engaged and keeping them coming back on campus. If you tell a community of people that are already struggling to come on campus during a pandemic and afterwards that, you know, they have to stay off campus, they're not allowed, they have to stay socially distanced, it is very difficult for them to re-engage when it's time. So we have gotten very creative, and we have made sure that we have encouraged, invited our parents back on campus for numerous events. One of the things that we have done to not just encourage them to come on campus for academic events is for things to make sure they understand we care about them as a family and as a whole. So of course we have a pantry for not just our parents but also for our staff, where they can come, and it's open to the public every Thursday afternoon. They're able to come and get fresh produce, meat, milk, paper items. We partnered with the Out of Door Academy. They provided beverages for everyone to be able to come on campus. We have had family events, teddy bear picnics, so the kids and families were able to come out, read books, and sit across our lawns, and they were able to come out and enjoy time with each other, just a non-cognitive event where they were able to really hang out with each other, with their teachers, with their classmates. We had AR pep rallies where they were able to celebrate their academic achievements around accelerated reader, and those kids really get competitive when it comes to reading and earning their points. We now have a sports team, so our first flag football game, where we plan to stomp a mud hole in Visible Mid Academy on November 15th at 4:30. So we would love to invite you to see that happen. We'll have hot dogs there. We also will have math, reading, writing, and science nights. So on those nights, we're inviting parents where those will be the focus, but it's not just us teaching parents how to teach those things to our kids. It's actually the students are showing how they learn those things and showing that those are the areas that they are exploring, so they're able to show some of the projects and things that they're working on. Because we're a school of multiple intelligences, the first 2 weeks of school, we actually did surveys. We spent time with the kids and spent time talking to them about how they learn, so that when things do get difficult, it was very important for us to know that sometimes we have to introduce things to them in different ways to keep them engaged and to help them with their academic performance. So some of our students do need to see things visually. Some of our students do prefer things to do things kinesthetically in order to boost their performance. So this was something that we also shared with our parents, so that they were aware that when they're at home, if that child is struggling with their homework, we did take the time to share that information with you so that you could experience that as well. Additionally, we have the nights where the parents are invited on campus. So we have monthly parent-family engagement nights for multiple intelligences. Our next one that we're having is our interpersonal night. It's on November 29th. You're all welcome to come. But on that night, it's our multicultural family event. And all of our families will be coming out and sharing about their culture and about their traditions, and they'll be cooking food and bringing items. So this is the time where this particular multiple intelligence will be shared with the entire community. We also have extracurricular activities that are offered after school. So we have a drum line modeled after HBCUs that has performed across Manatee and Sarasota counties, and we were actually invited by Adam Emerson, the charter school director of the state. He actually asked us to come and perform at the charter school conference when we were there next year. He actually asked us if we would come and perform next year. So if my kids are watching, they're probably going to all want to be in drumline now. We have, of course, our sports program will continue to grow because we've had a lot of interest with that. Little Medical School is happening on our campus, so we had some kids that were interested in veterinary practices and medical practices. So Little Medical School comes out and works with the kids, and they practice on stuffed animals, and they practice being vets and things like that. And then we have 2 dance teams, both, again, modeled after HBCUs. We have a majorette dance team, and we had Paw Steppin' Panthers. So each of those things, again, is designed for us to keep our parents engaged and make sure that our parents and our students know that we are every student, every family, every day. We want to make sure that they understand that, of course, we're here. We want to build the academics. We want to make sure that they understand that we are a school for them, but we're also a part of their community. Thank you for your time.
So Denise, if you could, Dr. Cantalupo, if you could also explain where we are in the renewal process with SSIS and what the date may be.
Millie's going to walk through 4 points just to sum up. But before we do that, does anybody have any questions for the board at SSIS?
Well, I have a question. One of the questions that I noted was that you have 31 students in 3rd grade,
Yes.
and that's one class?
We have 2 3rd grade classes.
2 3rd grade classes. Okay, that was my question. I was hoping that that was the case.
So if you could, SSIS has, if you could just go down, how many total students and then how many in each grade? I think that will help the board members as well.
Okay, I'm going to refer to the read ahead. I'm just going to read down each grade level and the number of students, okay? And I don't know if you have the read ahead in front of you. I'm on slide 21. So in kindergarten, we have 21 students, 1 teacher, 1 para. First grade, 19 students, 1 teacher. We have a first and second grade split, 16 students, 1 teacher. Second grade, 12 students, 1 teacher. Third grade, we have 16 students and 1 teacher in 1 classroom, 15 students, 1 teacher in another classroom. 4th grade, we have 11 students, 1 teacher, well, 12 as of today, and 1 teacher. We have a 4th, 5th grade split, 17 students and 1 teacher. In 5th grade, we have 12 students, 1 teacher.
And the number of, that chart does not match, that you just read does not match the chart that we have in our handout. The number of ESE students and the number of English language learner students, is that the same as we see here in the document?
Yes, which I didn't send that number, so if you have it from SIS, then it is the same.
Okay. Mrs. Brown?
Yeah, the numbers don't always add up, and they're off, a couple here, a couple there, and I can imagine, because like right in this read ahead that we got, it says the school serves 139 students, and then it says the number of students was 139. So was it 144 or 139? And then in another place, there was another number. But the number that just concerns me is the unsatisfactory and needs improvement. I mean, I see that that's improved from before, but you still had 4 teachers that were rated unsatisfactory last year in both reading and mathematics, the 3-year aggregate of teachers. And the other one is just the percentage of the students that are at level 1 and level 2. It's just, you know, I think it's like 81% of when I lost my page here, I calculated it out. But those numbers are just so high. You know, how and I know it's difficult for teachers, but you know, how do you have teachers that are unsatisfactory? You know, here's the page, the current assessment results for reading. 82% of third graders were at level 1 or 2, and fourth grade was 70%. Oh, that's 14 out of 20, 27 out of 33. And fifth grade was 13 out of 20, which is 65%. Those numbers are just so high, and I know you're dealing with a very fragile group of students, but isn't that all the more reason we need to get them out of that level 1 and level 2?
Yeah, I agree with you. We absolutely have to get them out of that level 1 and 2. So a part of the things that we are working on is that intensive instruction. So when we talk about the group of students that need that intensive instruction, those are the ones that we're focused on. The students that are able to perform to proficiency, those students absolutely need enrichment and they need challenge, so we make sure that they stay there. But our students that are able to respond to small group instruction, those are the students that were the catalyst for us really redesigning our schedule, working with BSI to take a look at that intervention time for those students and expanding our school day. That was the main reason why we needed to make sure that we address that. Without those students, I'm quite positive we would have kept our schedule the same. We wouldn't have gone to Tallahassee to find out what we needed to do. But those students are the main reason why we have made some of the drastic changes that we made this year.
Has it showing any promise yet?
The changes that we've made. So right now, as far as our data that we've had, we've been able to show a little change in the right now from the data. So we just had our PM1 data. We're looking at our PM2 data that's going to be starting in a couple of weeks. The students right now are finishing their math diagnostic and at the end of this week. So we'll be able to really get a better idea at the end of this week what changes. But that's why we opted into this data. If we hadn't chosen to opt into this iReady data, we wouldn't have, I would have no answer for you. I would be like, I'm not sure until next November, until the end of November. But that's why we've opted into this, so that we can better tell what kind of growth we'll be able to see more often than the PM will show us.
Yeah, I think it's necessary for you to go forward.
I agree.
You know, on page 4 of the read ahead, it lists 4 unsatisfactory teachers in the 3-year aggregate. I mean, are they getting professional development?
I don't think this is in the read ahead that I sent to you.
So just to clarify, there were 2 documents that you should have received ahead of time. That's our summary. I think we shared with you when we met a couple weeks ago. I believe that's what Ms. Brown is referring to. And then there was a separate set of slides that SSIS presented in the read ahead packet with a much more data-rich set of slides.
So one of the
there
things,
are 2 documents.
Yeah, one of the things that we shared is, and that we also found when we went to this data is, as a charter school, we don't actually have access to that information from we need to get that information from the state. We don't have that access to that state level. We don't have that.
Actually, we should be able to provide that for you. These are VAM aggregate scores, so they are a very complex calculation, but very accurate. So I think to Ms. Brown's point is that since that they've received some of them several U's in a row, and we can provide that to you, but the intensity of the professional development in order to work with this very challenged group of students is really necessary, and I think that's what you're leading to.
Yeah.
And I know that's based on the VAM scores, which, is controversial. But I would hope that, if the information doesn't, I don't know why it wouldn't go to the charter schools, but if they're not getting it, I would make sure that not only this school, but all of the charter schools get that information.
Individual teachers, it's not public information for a year after it's given, but we do provide that information to the schools. So maybe in the transition, you weren't able to receive it, but we do provide it to every school.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, Mrs. Jenkins has only been in your job, what, a month now? So
Yes, ma'am.
bless your heart. That's tough. But I know that you have started this job in early October, so
Yes, ma'am.
I'm taking that into consideration as well. So,
Thank you.
Tom Edwards?
Thank you. I want to start by saying that I am pro-choice, pro-charter school. So let me start by saying that. When I got here and I met with Dr. Asplin, I shared with him just some conversations where I felt some of our people in the district were resentful of charter schools because some of our funding was going there, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm from the point of view that if the district approved you and you're part of the district and we have oversight, that we should perform that oversight and we should get you successful. So no, that's where I start. That's my jumping off point. Secondly, before I get to my observations, I want to say that as board members, I appreciate your service. I often get yelled at by the public coming through the door, and they have no idea how much time and effort that I put into this job because I care about the students and their well-being. So now I will give you my observations. I went to see your school when the last grades came out, and I made an appointment to get over and visit your school because I wanted to make sure that we were providing the oversight and that we had given every possible opportunity to improve, to get your students to improve. So bear in mind, I'm looking at a class that was graded a year before I got here. So now I'm gone through the second school year, and those kids aren't much better off. And now we're looking at an improvement. When I went to visit your school, I offered anything I can do to help. I'll speak to the superintendent. I'll do whatever I can. I never heard back from any board member or any administrator or any person to say we're still struggling, we need your help, because I had the pipeline of Dr. Asplin to do what we could. So I also want to tell you that halfway through that process, I went to Dr. Asplin and said, I need to call Tallahassee with you because I don't feel like those kids are getting what they need, and we need to have them back. So if it's going to be, they already lost 2 years ago, this year, and they're still in that program, we need to have them back as soon as possible. Now, I need to say the other part that I was super excited to want to work with you, to have a Title I charter elementary where great innovation could happen, new possibilities, wonderful new programs, all of the flexibility to really impart on those students. It never happened. And quite honestly, Dr. Jenkins, I'm with Mrs. Goodwin here. I apologize that you're here only a month and you're sort of absorbing this. But a lot of what you said you're going to do, we heard in the boardroom a year ago when Dr. Evans was here. So I'm just telling you that from my point of view, I feel like as an individual board member that I have done everything humanly possible to try and help you and those students excel, even improve, like it's improving, and I'm personally frustrated for their longevity within. And one last thing, the management turnover is a concern. The board members that were in the boardroom a year ago, you might have been board members, but it's not the same board members. So there's so much turnover, so much upheaval, not a whole lot of improvement. And I appreciate how hard and you're volunteer and you're working. I appreciate it. But I'm more concerned about where those kids are going and what they need. And can we do a better job? That's my feeling. 2 quick questions. You had a very luxurious teacher to student ratio last year. What is that new ratio?
I don't have the direct numbers, but I just read the.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have how many administrators do you have working with your teaching staff?
So right now, Dr. Evans and Mr. Atkins are the instructional coaches, and I'm the principal.
Okay.
So we are the ones who are pulling the students for the intervention, if that answers your question.
Yes.
Okay.
And lastly, what is your fund balance?
Move the microphone, please, closer to your, thank you.
Okay. Right now, we're at 51,694. And that's
Pardon?
51,694.
And just out of curiosity, how do you think that is going to, so when, is the 65,000 part of that?
51.
No, I
No.
know. You have a $65,000 grant, I think.
That's not part of
coming.
it.
When is that coming?
I don't know when we're going to get it.
No, that is not a part of that. I guess that's from the state. It's a separate thing.
But it buys you services, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
But
thank
not
you very
general-
much.
Not in your general fund, correct?
Not yet.
Is your fund balance at least 3%, like the state requires?
3% of what?
3% of the total funding that you have. Because you have to always have at least 3% of your funding needs to be in fund balance.
Right.
Or else then they'll look at you as a financial emergency, and then they will shut you down. So that's why you might want to look at the percentage too. I didn't think about that last time I saw you. You might want to find out what that percentage is.
It's probably around, it's probably 4%.
Okay, well, you want to make sure.
Sure.
When they call you, you don't want to say probably.
No. I'm thinking about how much money we get from the state,
Sure.
and I'm multiplying it. It's 14, 26. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And Ms. Penner, our CFO back there, can help with that if you need help with that to find out what that percentage is. I know, for instance, in our policy, we want to keep everything at least at 7.5, so we don't get near the 3. We always hang around 10% just to make sure in case there's a hurricane or something like that. So, so you might want to look at that.
Okay.
I know with the administrators, last time we talked, I know you said you had like 7. Did you release some since then?
No, I think one of the things that was kind of an area of contention, I guess, was who we were calling administrators and what was considered administrative. One of the things that I made sure to put in the read ahead was that really anybody who wasn't in a classroom as a teacher, we had, we're a charter school, so we were just listing people as whatever we considered they were. So when it looked like we had this top-heavy administrative staff, we were like, everybody who's not a teacher, you're an administrator. So it wasn't that we got rid of administrators. We kind of looked at what other schools were doing and what they were naming their people, and we kind of tried to make it a little bit easier to understand what our staff was doing on our campus.
So, and I noticed that you eliminated the human resources person. Who does that now?
It's spread amongst, so Anthony and our administrative assistant, but we contract out for human resources, so they just kind of do the support for that. It's not a position at this point.
All right.
Sometimes you're better off actually putting those things out to a human resource specialist organization or something than trying to do them yourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
It really helps. I've run a small nonprofit myself, and it's everybody can't do all the due diligence to keep up with all the things that are required.
Right.
Particularly in human resources.
Yes. Do you all remember Larry Robbins?
Of course.
Yeah.
You know Larry.
Remember him well.
Yeah, love Larry. I go back to before Larry was the chairman/president of the board. I remember when you all were located on Tuttle, where, who's there now? 40 Carrots in that general area. So I went in one day and there were kids running everywhere, and I was like, what's going on here? But I had dear friends who were volunteers there and loved the school. And then, of course, you all went into middle school, which was probably not a smart idea. Steve Evans was in charge at that time. And the church, I think, was costing you megabucks in rentals. And then, of course, you settled down, and now you're in a facility that an old friend of mine owns and near Sarasota High, and I think that's very smart that you're only dealing with elementary. But you've got 16 students listed as having ESC requirements, and that is your strong suit.
Yes, ma'am.
And yet we have 2 IEPs that are out of compliance. Have those been completed?
No, they're actually being completed tomorrow, actually. But those students, without getting into too much details, those students, we were very careful with them because they came to us from a private school. There was some language barrier there, and we wanted to be careful to make sure that we wrote those IEPs that were appropriate for them because they were out of compliance years before they got to us. Before those students enrolled with us. So we needed to do evaluations for those students and also do ESOL evaluations because they hadn't been in public school for years.
There's 16 students with disabilities. Is that what you said?
16 students with IEP, ESC students. We have
ESC
more
students,
504 students as well.
Right, okay. I noticed on your ESSA report there, said your current number is 5% proficiency in students with disabilities. And so I know you're working on that.
Absolutely.
Especially with the IEP piece.
Yes. And that is the lowest number that we've had.
Yeah.
It took a dramatic dip for us. We have never had a number that low. So again, that was a drastic reason why we needed to take a look at that because we had never been anywhere near that number. So it's a very big concern for us.
And so, and right now you have around 140 students, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like we get a couple, we teeter-totter around that number lately.
And so I know that you had mentioned BSI is really going to be helping you this year.
Yes, they have already been tremendous help with that, along with, like I say, some members of the district team.
Yes. I know last time when we met, just a reminder on that, the district team, they have a hard time getting everything that I need to get them to just with our 40 schools here. They do a really good job, and they're definitely willing to help. And like Mr. Edwards said, we're definitely, wanting to help you and help our students because we consider everybody, our students in the district. And I know BSI will help, and we'll help as much as we possibly can. And at the same time, they're running all over the place with all these other elementary schools. So, quite honestly, when you look at 140 students, when you look at the resources that we have running around to different schools, it would be easier for us to take the 140 students and just sparse them out among our schools and work it that direction. But I completely understand the charter school and everything else. And that's why I wanted to know about the renewal. If the renewal was today, truly my recommendation would be let's not do that, because we could serve the students better just putting them in our schools, especially if our people are helping your school as well. But hopefully you'll be able to turn that around. So.
And to that, I would just say, I hear you saying things like take the students and you wouldn't renew, but I have to also tell you that, we haven't taken your students. Our parents have chosen it. We're a school of choice.
Right.
I want to just make sure that I remind you that we are not taking students who were on level and making them below level. Our students are coming to us the level that they are. They are able to show growth when they get to us. We are able to make them better citizens. We, are continually working to make sure they get to proficiency. Every single student that comes to us, they continue to buy those uniforms. They continue to come through that car line. We continue to talk to those parents every day. So for us, as long as those parents continue to choose us, we will continue to be as service to them. So I know that you all will have a choice to make, and until you guys do make that choice, which I do hope it will be to that we can continue to serve those parents. I know you have a choice to make, but our choice will always be to serve those families that choose us.
I really understand that. But here's reality. I've talked to several principals of middle schools who have received some of your students and have found that they were not prepared for middle school. What do I say to them? One child's failure is too many. And, you've got an issue with English language learners and who's actually monitoring that program and who's in charge, and whether it's Mr. Atkins or it's the administrative assistant, and some of the issues around that are of concern to me. That, along with your financial obligations, there was a negative $200,000 that, did we ever get an explanation on that in our read ahead that I see?
We did pose a list of financial questions to the team, and we did we did receive answers back, and I apologize. There's sometimes a lot can change in the couple weeks when you get the read ahead and when they're here. And Ms. Penner has reviewed them. I know she's here and able to answer specific questions. The summary of the responses were that they did answer all of them, and thank you for that information. I think it left us still questioning their financial stability based on the non-recurring funds. So they were utilizing grants and donations to balance those funds, and that was an accounting concern. Did I summarize that correctly? Thank you.
So I have concerns about the financial aspects, and your treasurer is, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir.
Anthony.
I'm sorry.
Anthony DiBenedetto.
Speaking.
Pull the microphone down. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Anthony DiBenedetto.
Mr. DiBenedetto, can you give us some reassurances of the financial obligations and worthiness of the school?
We are going to make every payment. We're not going to be getting into large amounts of debt other than our credit line. And and that gets paid off as we get the money from the county each month. I pay off the loan. So we are going to be fine. We have donors that have given us quite a few funds, and we have more funds coming down the line, and we will make every obligation, and we will not fail because of finances. I promise you that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Excuse me. Addressing the ESOL, Stacy Zenteno was formerly a Sarasota County Schools employee that once was an ESOL ESOL aide, and I am currently the liaison. Because she had certain expertise that I wasn't familiar with, she was helping push in to help some of our ELL students. So I don't understand the confusion piece of it, but those are the two roles. If you have any other questions.
But she is employed by you as an administrative assistant, correct?
Correct. At charter schools, you wear a few hats because we do not have the same funding. We do not have the same resources.
Shirley Brown.
Is it Mrs. or Dr. Jenkins or?
Mrs. Jenkins works. Mrs. Jenkins.
I just didn't want to. You bring up an important point. The parents have chosen you. That was one point. Another point you were saying is these two IEPs that are out of compliance. They came from private schools, did you say? That hadn't been assessed before. And I know we hear all the time that parents know best and parents will choose what's right. And I don't know if we're still going to talk about it, but we had talked about, vouchers was on the list before, and how we have so much state money that is now going into voucher programs because parents know best. And I don't know how parents can sometimes understand. Do parents know that you had 4 teachers that were rated unsatisfactory by the state? I don't know if the Sarasota, we didn't grade anybody unsatisfactory, but does the state grade us differently than what we grade them?
There's a number of different student growth models. The ones that are listed here were based on the state VAM calculation. So I
would like to know if we have any needs improvement or unsatisfactory teachers according to the VAM score.
Okay. I can do that.
In our schools or in our charter schools, and I would like to have a response. This is what the state graded them. This is how we graded them.
I can definitely do that.
And why is that different?
And I could explain the calculation.
And I don't know if there are differences.
There may or may not be. There may be some subtle, knowing the calculations like I do. I'm sure there are some differences, but we could show you those.
But, we have like 90-some% teachers are highly effective.
Oh, yes, because we also put the pride with that.
Yeah.
Our qualitative measure as well.
So I'd like to know if our pride brings them up and gives them more, would that have made a difference with her 4 teachers if they were also graded on the pride?
I'm sure they would. Pride is usually rated fairly favorably. I will say that in terms of proportions, we don't have this many U teachers coming in with VAM scores like this.
But, it just brings me to what we're always hearing, and I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with you, that parents know best. How do parents know? How can parents even understand that only 65% of their 5th graders are at level 1 and 2, and 88% of their level 1 and 1 of their 3rd graders? How do the parents know that? Where do they get that information from? Or do they even bother to look? Or do they hear from a friend? Because that's how, when my kids were changed from one school to another, it was from a friend. I mean, we talked. We didn't have all this other stuff. And, last year they spent $23 billion of tax money that went to private schools. And, whoa, that was a small amount because, I think in the legislature it even says they're going to grow by 25% a year. And it increased $1 billion last year. And I'm getting some of these facts from Florida's hidden voucher expansion, over $1 billion from public schools to fund private education. It was from the Education Law Center and the Florida Policy Institute. I think this is something that's important for all of our administrators and maybe some of our taxpayers to read this, because Sarasota is one of the ones that is impacted more than any other county when you look at the number of students that are taking these vouchers or scholarships. And once they qualify for them, and it's like, it's not, it started out as students in failing schools that were below poverty being able to take their students to a private school that would serve them. Well, that's not what it is. I mean, because these are people that are definitely middle class that are taking them, and then these, and that doesn't even include the corporate scholarships, because that's another pool of money that's going, and it's quite scary to me that this is increasing, and it has Sarasota 23% of the state dollars that came to us in this school year are going to those. It was like the state dollars were reduced by 17, 18, 19 million dollars to go to those. And we don't know how those students are doing, but we know that, was it last year or the year before? There were 2 students that never even had, evaluations done. And
accountability for
parents sometimes don't always make the best choices, and we don't know. We talk about transparency. We're hearing and we're getting information about how this school is performing and how some of their students are performing, but we don't know how that $20 million is going, and I don't know how many millions of dollars go through the corporate scholarships in Sarasota County, but that's another dollar amount that's going, and where is the accountability there? We don't know if these kids are at level 1 and 2 before they go to our charter schools. I have a feeling they probably were. If they had been tested, they were a level 1 or 2 at the schools they came from. And I think that that's something that we need to know, especially if they're even looking at going to something like a debit card where they get all their dollars on. And I mean, we see the fraud and abuse in food stamps. I can see the fraud and abuse coming in these education voucher debit cards too. So I'm concerned that we have local tax dollars going to private schools that parents choose, whose kids are getting a level 1 and 2, whose kids are not getting evaluated. There's some students at her school that we now found out about that were at a private school, probably with a voucher. I don't know for sure. I don't have that information, but I bet if we looked it up, they were on a voucher at one of those schools.
Unfortunately, the accountability systems are vastly different for charter and public schools on one side and private schools on the other. So I have no doubt that they came in, and then we have it in the traditional schools as well, that they come from private back to us, and then and only then do we find out that an evaluation wasn't done and so forth. So
and we also find out that the dollars stayed there; they didn't come here, and because they say the dollars follow the students, but they don't, because there are certain times where the number of students are set, when the dollars are coming, and after that time, if you get more students, you're not being paid for them. So I just think that this is an example of parent choice, either at a charter school or at private schools where these kids were before, where parents didn't make some good decisions sometimes. And some people say, well, maybe those kids would be a level 1 or 2 wherever they went. I think we've got the mindset, and Dr. Aspen, you let me know, Do we have a mindset that there are some kids that are just going to be level 1 and 2 and there's nothing you're going to do about it?
No. No, we want everybody to be at least level 3 and above. I think everybody wants that. I know you all want
And
that.
I know you all want that too. And you deal with what you've got. And maybe some of these kids were in our schools and weren't performing well there either. I don't know. But it just scares me, the number of kids that are falling off the radar with the unheard of expansion of these. And it's not state dollars, it's not the corporate scholarships. That 17 million came from our local tax base and the required local effort. That's where those dollars came from. And it was deducted from the state dollars by what should have come to us for categoricals that we ended up having to put our local dollars in. And I'm sorry, I'm preaching.
Well, we're not going to talk about vouchers today, but at one time, we're going to. But I will say this, you'd be very smart to look at where those students are coming to you from, what schools they're coming to you from, so that you can see patterns of perhaps why they have come to you and are at level 1 or 2, because there are patterns. I've said this to Dr. Cantalupo. We've talked about this before, that we need to make sure with our students now we know where they come to us from and we know where they leave us and go, because it is something that will tell you a lot. And we call, we call these voucher programs, the state doesn't like that. They like to use the word choice. Now they like to call, parental involvement, scholarships. Yeah, but we call them scholarships or, something about parents. But basically, they're schools with no rules. They have no accountability. The kind of accountability that you have in being a charter school doesn't exist. So there's no fiduciary problems. They have to have an audit done every 3 to 5 years. Is it 3 years or 5 years? That's it. They have to give some kind of a test, who knows what it is, once a year, but they don't have to report any of the achievement of those students. So
Sure.
You'd be very smart in taking a look at that, and all of our schools, all of our principals are very smart in taking a look at that.
Sure.
Because it does affect us, because we are accountable.
Right. Well, a majority of our students do come from Booker, Gosio, and Alta Vista. Okay. So we actually know where all of our students come from. But yeah, most of our students are community students that come from right around those areas. So we share our students with those same schools.
Dr. Asplund, do you have anything to add?
I just want to know next steps and when the renewal date is and so on.
Well, I just wanted to summarize by saying thank you to Faith and your team. I know you worked very hard on this presentation, and I know that you guys have been working hard to analyze what's happening with your students and at the school level to try to make effect change. So thank you for that. And just as a reminder to the board, they are here today to talk through those things, because they are our only CS&I school, but it is also part of statute for charter schools who receive a DRNF to appear before the sponsor. So again, thank you for that. Also, separate from that, but now they're sort of aligning, they are also in a renewal year. So their current charter contract will expire in June of this year. And we are in process of going through that renewal process with them. So the way that process works is that their team will prepare and present a renewal packet to us. And then the CRC team, much as we do with a new application, will meet to review on that and provide a recommendation based on a thorough review from all of our district departments to you. Their team will be invited back again to present on their renewal. That it should be in January. The date has not been scheduled yet, but tentative on the timeline, it's January, and then there will be a vote in February on that renewal process. Does that answer your question? Do you have? Okay.
So coming up soon to a school near you, right?
Yes, and also with that, I just wanted to note that we have a district leadership team was out and met with this team a couple weeks ago to talk about this and pose some questions and had some good conversation with them. We were planning on being there with the BSI walkthrough with some curriculum and people as well to offer support. And we will be there when it does get rescheduled. And then we will work with them on that support and those walkthroughs and partnering with that BSNI team and SSIS on this journey.
Shirley?
And I want to apologize for going off on a tangent, which I sometimes do. But I won't be here in January when the vote will be coming up. I want to thank you all for working as hard as you do, because you're doing God's work. You really are. It's a difficult job, and there's no other charter school that has taken this kind of population. I know there was the Visible Men's Academy that they were going to take some of these, and they found out it wasn't so easy also. It's not an easy job, and it's very, very difficult. We know that. But I think maybe you're new. Maybe look back and see, well, these kids came at a level 1 from your school. So now we're going to put them back to your school? I don't know. I don't know where they came from before, but maybe look at that, or maybe something else. We don't want to know names. We just want to know some stats. At least, I guess I won't be voting, but maybe that might help with the superintendent and our staff, because I think we do want to do what we can for those students. And we want to work with people who want to do that too. And I see that's what you want, and I know Sharika does too. I know where her heart is, and I would imagine your heart's in the same way. And there's nothing you want more than to see your students succeed. And I see them at the Tiger Bay meetings now. And that's nice. And, so I think these kids need to see that, yes, you can succeed. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I agree.
And I know you can too. And so I wish you the best of luck with these kids. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
May I make a comment? So I'm the president of the board. I'd just like to say first that our board is totally committed to ensure that we comply with our charter and do everything that we can to be sure that our school is complying with the charter. Our board is totally on board to support Principal Jenkins and her staff and her team to achieve their school improvement plan this year. So it's like what Mr. Edwards said, it's whatever it takes that we can do to help that. And finally, we're also joined with the school leadership to raise funds as necessary to support their operations. And these are some of their extracurricular activities that they do for these kids. I think that we are so excited about the way in which the school is operating this year and has operated in the past, particularly with respect to parent engagement and trying to not only bring these kids into a school to say this is a great place to be and a safe place to be, but also their parents to come in and say, this is a great place for my kid and a safe place for my kid, and where my kid is going to be recognized for the kind of special individual that he is in this school. And that's what this school does, and that's what Faith and her team do. So anyway, just want to let you know that we're here. We do have our longest standing board member actually lives in Detroit, I think now, and has been a steadfast member of the board. So we have expanded our board over the last couple of years. We have all of our board here except for Mr. Neal, who's out of state. So anyway, thanks you so much for having us and for your comments. We appreciate the direction. We particularly appreciate the support from the district as we go forward this year. So thanks again.
Dr. Asplin?
Yes, I wanted to say, number one, thank you for being here today. Number two, I know that you want SSIS to be a successful school. And I know that you're doing everything that you can to do that. And Ms. Jenkins, I know you're, new taking on this position this year, and some of the things that you're putting in place, I think are admirable. I think it's very good. I want you to know that we do very much care about SSIS, and when we say helping you, we definitely mean that. So whatever you need, give us a call, let us know, and we'll do our best to help as much as we possibly can. And if I could suggest anything, really, and maybe you're already doing these things, so just take it as a suggestion. And that is, first of all, I know, as an administration that runs a school of 139 or 40 students, you have to wear a lot of different hats, because you really need to condense that down so you can get as many teachers in front of kids as possible, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
so next thing you know, you're doing lunch duty in HR and running the school and taking a parent call at the same time in the cafeteria, right? Because you're the person. And so anything that you can do to funnel the dollars to get maybe an interventionist or two to help with pull out or push in, right? And then also helping the teachers, making sure that they understand the standards of getting all the training that they need, which I know that you're working on, helping them with training from different frameworks of reading, because not every student learns the same way, and teachers need to be able to diagnose that and then teach them correctly, right? And then also make sure the teachers are talking to each other all the time and building formative assessments that they can then look at together and decide which student needs what. And in a small school like that, a very small school like that, even though you have grades K to 5, you might need to mix them a little bit with certain teachers, a second grader with a fourth grader, because they're on the same level with standards. And then your second grader might be getting ahead, which is great. Your fourth grader still needs the standards. So it's not even as much about their age or their grade level as it is get them in small groups based on what they know and what they can do and can't do, and come at it from that standpoint with teachers that can help with those standards after they talk to each other and share the kids, and not just these are my kids and that's what we do and all that. So that's what I would do if I were you, and that right there might help you right off the bat start getting things going in the right direction. Then you'll see where to go from there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
In Scandinavia, everybody talks about great schools, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I've researched this a bit, and elementary kids have no tests. Well, I'm all for that, frankly. I really think we test too much. And I think we spend too much time away from instruction with tests, but that's just me. What do I know? But they also, in Scandinavia, they don't grade, they don't have kids actually segmented according to grades. They work at their own pace, and they can go and move forward as they achieve and learn. And, that's kind of neat. And they have play. About every 90 minutes, they go out to play for about 15 minutes. And I think that's true. We've forgotten play oftentimes, and I think, our littles, our pre-Ks, which I absolutely love, it has to be, to a degree, play-based. It has to be. These are tiny, tiny children. And our elementary kids have to love learning, and they have to love going to school, and we have to build some of those things in. So you're doing this 60 minutes extra. My hat's off to you. I think that's great. Don't forget the element of fun and play. And, if there's some mentoring that you need, this man is a giant when it comes to instruction. That's why we hired him. He knows all about instruction, don't you?
Well, it's our team.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you put the team together, and we have a great leadership here. So, there are no dumb questions. Ask a question. If you don't understand something, Millie is always a phone call away. You, I'm sure, have her cell phone number, because if you're like me, you don't like going through all these gatekeepers. But don't, ask a question, because there are no dumb questions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So don't be afraid. Be a friend. Best of luck to you. You won't be seeing me on this dais again, because I like Mrs. Brown. What? No, not at all. Go
Thank
right
you.
ahead.
Hey, thank you all for your service. And just to what you're saying, I think speaks to the multiple intelligences that we really have ingrained in our mission here is, kids develop in different ways at different times. the staff here is just really, really connected in the community and doing some things that is just really special as a citizen of Sarasota. But Tom, I want to apologize to you. You reached your hand out, and I had no idea. But if you ever have that feeling again, I would be very surprised. Okay, so I just want to apologize for SSIS for not taking up on your offer.
No apologies necessary, really. I just wanted to let you know that you have an advocate here and there and there. Don't leave it on the table. Go get it.
Absolutely. You all have a standing open, especially, I know you all said you won't be up here again. Please come. We got some kids that would love to read with y'all.
I'm always
Please.
I'm always a teacher.
As we said, our kids love just having some time, to hang out with somebody, read a little bit, to play. So you have an open invitation at all, but we will formally extend invitations for you all, to come out, spend some time on our campus, and of course for advice. And I've took some notes, so I appreciate you going ahead and give us some of that advice. Thank you.
Best of luck to you all. Thank you for being here
Thank you.
today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Sorry that I have to look around the edges. But at
No
any rate,
worries.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
I think that's it for us today. Everything else will be moved to a future agenda. And this is my last workshop, along with Mrs. Brown, who I think has already moved on. So with this, we're adjourned.